The Secret of Room 47. Zara was a young journalist known for her curiosity and boldness. One evening, she checked into the Grand Meridian Hotel, a century-old building famous for its luxury and for its secrets. While checking in, the receptionist hesitated when assigning her a room, finally whispering, "Avoid the 7th floor if you can." Zara, intrigued, insisted on staying there. She was given room 47. The corridor outside her room was strangely quiet. The lights flickered and the carpet felt damp, as though no one had walked there for years. Inside, the room was spotless but cold, and the window overlooked a dark alley. As Zara unpacked, she noticed an old diary in the bedside drawer. Its leather cover was cracked, and the first page read, "If you are reading this, leave before midnight." Thinking it was some hotel gimmick, Zara laughed and kept reading. The diary belonged to a woman named Syra, who stayed in the same room 20 years ago and disappeared without a trace. The last entry ended with a chilling line, "The knock at midnight means it's already too late." That night, Zara tried to sleep but couldn't. Around 12:03 a.m., a soft knock echoed from the door. She froze. Slowly she walked toward it, heart pounding, and whispered, "Who's there?" There was no reply. She peeked through the peephole, but the corridor was empty. Suddenly, her phone buzzed with an unknown number flashing on the screen. When she answered, a faint voice whispered, "Leave room 47. They're coming." Terrified, Zara grabbed her bag and ran to the elevator, but the display kept showing out of order. She decided to take the stairs, yet when she reached the ground floor, she found herself back on the 7th floor instead. The corridor stretched endlessly, like a loop. Every door she passed was numbered 47. No matter how far she ran, she kept returning to the same room. Desperate, she called the hotel manager. When he answered, his voice trembled. "You're in room 47. Listen to me carefully, don't look behind you, and don't open any door. Walk backward toward the red fire exit sign." Confused but scared, she followed his instructions. As she moved backward, she heard faint whispers and footsteps closing in, but she kept her eyes forward. Finally, she reached the fire exit, pushed the door open, and stumbled out into the lobby. Panting and shaken, Zara confronted the manager, demanding an explanation. He sighed and lowered his voice. "Room 47 doesn't exist anymore. 20 years ago, that entire section of the hotel was destroyed in a fire. Everyone who stayed there vanished. We locked it off, but sometimes the room comes back." The next morning, Zara went to check again, but the 7th floor was sealed with metal shutters. A security guard told her, "There's no access up there, miss. That floor's been closed for decades." Zara showed him the room key in her hand, but when she looked, the number on it had faded. It was blank. Even today, Zara refuses to speak about what she saw that night. But sometimes, when she checks into hotels for work, she avoids the 7th floor entirely. And every time she hears a knock at midnight, she makes sure never to open the door. The voice in the walls. Moving into her new apartment, Sophia loved its peaceful silence until strange whispers began at night. At first, she thought it was neighbors, but the voices seemed to come from inside the walls. One night, she pressed her ear to the cold plaster and clearly heard, "Sophia, let us out." Terrified, she grabbed a hammer and broke a small hole in the wall. Behind it, she didn't find pipes or wires. Instead, there was a narrow, dark passage. A shadow moved inside. Then a pale hand reached out, grabbing her wrist tightly, as a voice hissed. Finally, someone opened the door. The lights flickered. Everything went silent. The next morning, Sophia's apartment was completely empty.
The Forgotten Hospital. Chapter 1. The Dare. It was a rainy Friday night when four friends Amaya, Liam, Sophie, and Ethan stood outside the gates of the abandoned Ravenwood Hospital. Rumors said it had been closed for 30 years after a massive fire killed dozens of patients. Bet you won't last 10 minutes inside, Liam teased. Maya rolled her eyes. Watch me. With shaky hands, she pushed the rusted gates open. The moment they stepped inside, the air grew cold and heavy. The smell of dampness and burnt wood filled their lungs. Chapter to the first sign. The lobby was covered in dust, broken chairs, and shattered glass. A flickering light above the reception desk glowed faintly, even though the building had no power. This place gives me chills, Sophie whispered, gripping Ethan's arm. As they moved deeper, Maya spotted an old patient file on the floor. The paper was yellowed and torn, but one name stood out in red ink: Do not release, room 404. Suddenly, a loud metallic bang echoed down the hallway. Everyone froze. Chapter 3, Room 404. Following the sound, they reached the 4th floor. The corridor was lined with broken doors, each numbered. When they reached 404, they noticed it was sealed shut with heavy chains. Why would they lock this one? Ethan muttered. Before anyone could answer, the door creaked open on its own. Inside, the room was empty except for an old wheelchair facing the window. Liam walked over and spun it around, but the chair spun back by itself. Then, a faint whisper filled the room. Get out, before she wakes. Chapter 4. The Woman. Suddenly, Sophie screamed. Standing in the corner was a tall, thin woman in a burnt hospital gown, her head tilted unnaturally, long black hair hiding her face. Without warning, the door slammed shut, locking them inside. The woman's neck cracked as she slowly turned toward them, whispering, You shouldn't have come here. The lights flickered violently. Maya grabbed Sophie's hand, and they all ran into the hallway. But when they looked back, the door to room 404 was gone, replaced by a solid wall. Chapter 5. Trapped. Panicking, they searched for the stairs, but the corridors twisted like a maze. Every turn led them back to the same hallway. The air grew colder, and faint cries echoed from nowhere. Finally, they found an elevator. Desperate, they stepped inside, pressing G. The doors closed. But instead of going down, the elevator began moving up, past every floor number, into darkness. When the doors opened, they found themselves in a perfectly clean hospital, bright and new, but completely silent. Suddenly, intercom speakers crackled to life. Code Black, room 404, do not let the patient escape.